Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Jeff White Fitness Solutions. Thanks for checking out this video today. And I want to talk about what's going on over in Niger. We all see what's going on over in Niger. They recently had a coup, and there's a lot of tension and a lot of conflict going on. France is upset, the United States is upset, and it is it remains to be seen how this will play out. But as I look at this situation, I'm trying to look at the big picture, and this is my own personal opinion. I would love to hear what you guys think. But from what I can see, all this has been orchestrated and calculated by Putin. I believe this is part of a bigger plan to cause disruption in the West, and it's all part of the war in a way, an indirect part of the war. And I'm going to explain why in just a second. And I'm also going to, kind of talk about what we can do to protect ourselves because at the end, this is just going to affect everyone. So please like and subscribe to the channel and leave me a comment and let me know what you think about this. So check out what I have um, uncovered here. Okay, so let's do it. Okay, so now let's go back to last month. Now, many people may or may not know that there was an African Russian summit that took place at the end of July, and it was in St. Petersburg, Russia. There was an African summit where African nations, heads of state, and dignitaries, elected officials, were invited to come to St. Petersburg, Russia, and have a summit with Putin and many of his leaders. Now, in the West, this did not get a lot of attention. As a matter of fact, you can see some of the headlines here, and it basically made it seem as though this was not as successful as Putin would have liked. It was saying a lot of African nations did not attend, and it made it seem like it was a failure. But was it really a failure? I don't think it was. I think it was very important because you got to remember, look at the timing of everything that's going on now. So they had this summit in St. Petersburg, Russia, at the end of July, and they said a lot of people did not come. It was poorly attended, but I believe this is not true, and I'm going to show you in the next slide exactly who showed up to this summit from Africa that occurred in Russia. So check this out. So on the previous slide, you saw how it said a lot of leaders snubbed the conference, and they were saying that a lot of the presidents of these nations did not attend. Well, I mean, think about it though. How often does the president of the United States attend conferences? A lot of times they will send a representative, the Secretary of State, whoever. They'll send someone else to go. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And so when you look at it from that perspective, I want you to look at these lists of the people who actually did attend the Russian African Summit in Russia. I keep saying that because I want you to really understand that African leaders were invited to Russia to have a summit, and a lot of them attended. So take a look at this list here. Just take a good look. And you can see that there were quite a few presidents who went, yes, but then other countries sent prime ministers, they sent the minister of foreign affairs, ministers of defense, vice presidents, prime, all these different people from all these countries in Africa. You got Djibouti, you got Chad, you got the Congo, Algeria, Angola, South Sudan, Tunisia, Zambia. You have all these different high ranking officials who attended this Russian African conference in St. Petersburg, Russia. So I'm trying to paint the picture here. All these people, all these dignitaries went to Russia last month to talk about, I have no idea what, but they talked about it. And there's one thing you're going to notice if you look closely at this list. Niger is not on the list. And they were pretty busy. And I'm going to show you what they were doing at the time of this summit. So look at this. So the very day before the summit was supposed to start, there was a mutiny in Niger where soldiers overtook the government and said they were now in control. So that was the day before the summit was supposed to start. And as time goes on, we've all heard about some of the things that's going on. And Niger has cut ties with France. They've cut military ties with France and done some other things too. And now it's growing. So there's a lot of animosity towards France in Niger. Now, of course, you have some people who are opposed to the coup in Niger. I'm not there, of course, so I don't know the whole story, but we are seeing that there's a lot of anger and tension, and they basically um, want to get France out of their country. And so that happened the day before the um, the summit. And I'm pretty sure this was discussed during that summit as well. So now let's go a little bit further into this. All right, so let's talk about it a little further. So this is when people will say, well, how can you say that Russia or Putin is involved because this happened the day before the summit? Well, look at what some of the protesters were saying during the coup in Niger. They were saying, long live Putin. They're saying, long live Putin. Now, I'm not saying who's right or who's wrong. I'm not saying that they were right to overthrow the government. I'm not saying anything. I'm just looking at what's going on. And they were saying, long live Putin at this coup. Why would they say that? Why do you think they would say, long live Putin? And look at this here. That picture here is the leader of Burkina Faso. He met with Putin during the summit while the coup was going on in Niger. And as time went on, Burkina Faso and Mali have warned against military intervention in Niger, saying that if you attack Niger, that's considered an attack against us. Now, mind you, both Mali and Burkina Faso were at the Russian African Summit in St. Petersburg, Russia. I'm gonna keep saying it, y'all. I'm sorry, because it's just such a big thing that it's just being overlooked in the West. That basically Putin is really trying to reach out to these African leaders, and now we have this coup in Niger, and you have pro-coup demonstrators in Niger saying "Long live Putin." So I'm going to ask you, why do you think they would say that? Why? What's the point? So again, I believe that this is much bigger than we realize, and there's a lot we are not being told. And then there is this. Niger asks for help from the Russian group Wagner. The people in Niger who orchestrated the coup is asking help from the Russian group Wagner, and their leader is Prigozhin. Now, I don't know if you know who Prigozhin is, but he was in the news a lot, and I mean a lot, in the last month. He is a Russian mercenary. So again, people, I'm trying to put two and two together. I don't know if this is just plain addition or if this is advanced calculus, but all I know is there's a lot more to this than we realize, which again makes me think that all of this is part of a bigger plan to cause disruption in the West. And I'm going to explain why this is really big for the West right now. So let's talk briefly about one thing that did come out of the summit that I heard about. And again, there's a whole lot that we have no clue about. But one thing that Russia did was they wrote off $23 billion worth of African debt. $23 billion of debt. Now, how do you think that makes those countries feel when that debt was just poof, gone, wiped off the slate? Do you think they would be happy about that, or would they be indifferent? Do you think they'd be more inclined to support Russia because of that? Or do you think they'd be like, you know what, you sucker, we're going to just keep doing what we're doing? I believe this helps Russia's case in Africa a lot more than people realize. And again, what else was discussed at this summit? And at the same time, Niger is in a coup during this summit. And again, I keep saying, I know for a fact, well, I don't know for a fact, but I truly believe, I would be shocked that that coup was not discussed during this African Russian summit in Russia. There's no way they didn't talk about it. And so I believe they start to have a strategy and a game plan as to what they need to do going forward and how they can bolster their relationship and how they can support each other. What could they do to support each other? What could they do to support each other and weaken their adversaries? Something to think about. Okay, so I won't go into the deep history of Niger and France. Niger was a colony of France, and there's a lot of history, and I think a lot of animosity and bad blood there. And so Niger is basically saying, I'm done. We're done with you. We want nothing to do with you. So going back to my previous slide, at that summit, they probably thought of ways to help each other and hurt their enemies. What better way to hurt your enemy than by cutting them off? And in this case, Niger is talking about cutting off France from uranium exports and gold exports. Now, this uranium situation is a monster, and I believe this is why France, the US, and the West, and even some African countries are upset. Just like in the Middle East, all those wars came down to oil. In this case, it's going to come down to uranium because France needs that uranium for energy. And Niger is rich in uranium. So this is where the plot thickens, and this is how I say Putin is playing chess, and the West is either playing checkers or practicing their TikTok videos. They're not paying attention because Putin has built alliances in Africa, and these African nations have resources, natural resources that the world needs. But if Africa is mad at you and they decide they don't want to work with you anymore and cut you off, they can do that. And if these Western countries get mad, what can happen? Oh, here comes the Wagner Group. Here comes Russian mercenaries to help protect them from the West. So basically, we have another proxy war. This is why I say he's playing chess, strategy. And I'm sure all this was discussed where? At the Russian African Summit held in St. Petersburg, Russia, that the West said was a failure. Okay, so now we need to go back a little bit. Let's go back to May of this year, May 2023. And the president of Kenya, William Ruto, says African countries can trade using single local currency. Why bring in dollars? Why bring in dollars? African countries can trade using single local currency. Why bring in dollars? Now, you got to remember something. Africa is not a country, it's a continent. And there are dozens of countries in Africa, and they all have natural resources, and we're talking billions of dollars worth of trade. So, this is where I say Putin is playing chess and the rest of the world is practicing TikTok videos. I believe this was discussed at that African Russian summit that was held in St. Petersburg, Russia, while Niger was having a coup. They were discussing ways to bolster trade between these countries outside the US dollar. And as you can see here, Russia has already said many times they're looking to leave use of dollar, not only in Africa, but in other parts of the world. So this is where it affects people in the United States and the West. If these countries stop using dollars, we could be in a world of hurt economically. And if this coup succeeds in Niger, where they stop exporting uranium to France, we could see some major repercussions. Because if Niger can get away with it because they have support from Russian mercenaries and other countries start to catch on, we could see some serious problems. And again, none of this is discussed in mainstream media. How many people knew all of this was going on? This is huge. Okay, so now we know they recently had the summit in Russia. Where? Someone please tell me where the next BRICS summit is going to be. What continent is it going to be on? It's going to be on the African continent, and it's going to be in South Africa. Now, when I did my research, I found this, and I saw the official name of the conference. It's BRICS in Africa, Partnership for Mutually Accelerated Growth, Sustainable Development, and Inclusive Multilateralism. That is from the actual BRICS2023.gov website. Can you guys see that? BRICS in Africa, Partnership for Mutually Accelerated Growth, Sustainable Development, and Inclusive Multilateralism. Now, that should really make you think. That should really make you think and ask you, what in the world are we in for? If we saw this coup happen basically during the summit that was in Russia, what can we expect after or even during this summit? What can we expect? Now, I know there's a lot of talk about them creating a new currency, a new gold backed currency to challenge the dollar. Even if they don't do that, if they start trading outside the dollar, the US is in major trouble. So I think when I connect my dots and I use my basic math, they have been um, attracting or really working with these African nations, and they're trying to take it to the next level. And if they do that, the US is in a world of hurt. Okay, guys, so let's tie all this in together. Look at this. Africa is rich in natural resources that are exported around the world. And many people say they are exploited. Their exports are being exploited and they are not receiving fair dollar for their resources. So, this is why we need to watch what's going on in Niger very carefully. If they can survive this coup and not export their uranium and gold to France, other countries could see this and say, okay, you know what? We don't like how we're treated either. So guess what? We're going to stop exporting too. And the fact that Russia and the Wagner Group might be supporting the coup and protecting them makes this even more troublesome for the West because you see the Russia Ukraine situation. If Russia wins the Ukraine war, and then they can go in and protect Niger, all bets are off as far as Africa and them not using US dollars or accepting dollars for their goods. This could be a huge, huge problem for the West. And I'm going to explain what we can do to protect ourselves because technically, there's nothing we, the average person, can do about the situation. We can monitor it and then we can adjust and prepare accordingly. And I'm going to talk about that right now. Okay, guys. So, like I said, even if they don't create a new gold backed digital currency or whatever to rival the dollar, the fact is these countries are still moving away from using the dollar. At the end of the day, that is what we need to pay very close attention to. So, no matter what happens, we need to do the following, in my opinion. We got to protect ourselves. We can't rely on the government or anyone to save us because they may not be able to. Do they even want to? I don't know. They're not telling us these things, first off. And a lot of people are not prepared. How many people really looked at the situation I just described? How many people knew all of that? And then even there's more. I just didn't put it in here. But, that's the gist of it. So, anyway, we need to prepare for massive change in the economy, our money, and our way of life. Because again, if this goes through and people stop using the dollar, we can expect the dollar to decrease in value and things to get much more expensive. There's no other way around it. So, while we have the time, we need to stock up on food and other essentials. Stock up on food, stock up on water, stock up on medicine, stock up on extra clothes for your kids, things, car parts, stock up on a couple extra quarts of oil filters, all these little things. I have on my glasses now, but I also wear contact lenses. Do you have extra contact lenses? Do you have an extra pair of glasses? All these little things you want to think about because eventually they could get that much more expensive. And we don't want to be stuck where we need something and it just costs that much more. Look at it like this: inflation is already kicking people's butt. Rents are going up, gas prices are going up again, food is getting more expensive. Can you imagine things getting even more expensive? Well, if this coup succeeds in Niger, if Russia ends up defeating Ukraine, and if these countries start moving away from the dollar, you best believe things can get more expensive. Next thing you want to do is start planting and growing your own food. Whatever you can grow, any little bit you can, is going to help you. The more you can grow, the less you're going to need to go to the store to buy it. That's money you can spend in other places. Next, you got to get some security. And there's different types of security. You can get those projectiles that expel lead. You can get stun guns, you can get mace, you can get knives, you can get those alarms that make a lot of noise. There's a lot of different things you can do. So have a variety. And what you could do is you can even have some of the non-lethal varieties or options around your house. So if you're home and someone suddenly breaks in or whatever, and you can just pick something up real quick and protect yourself. Next, have alternative energy sources. We're already seeing prices on our electric bill going up, especially in the summer. We can expect it to go up again in the winter. We were seeing them trying to move over to clean energy. I don't think that's going to work. That's a whole other topic. But you want to be able to power your home outside of the system. That means having some type of solar generators, matching solar panels, gas generators. Have a variety and have more than one. And last but certainly not least, get some physical gold and silver. I was just watching a video on parallel systems, and he had Bob Moriarty on there. Shout out to my friend Mike, my boy Mike. But Bob Moriarty said something really important. I had never really thought about it like this. He said that when you travel, always have some physical gold and silver with you, like some silver coins, maybe a couple of gold coins, because if the dollar was to collapse, and people don't want dollars, trust and believe they will take that physical gold coin or that silver coin. We're talking Krugerrands, we're talking maple leafs, We're talking Britannicas. They will take it no matter where you are in the world. If that currency collapses, they will take that gold and silver, and you can either buy your food or you can even get home with that. So let me know what you guys think. This is a crazy time we're living in. Please watch this story with Niger, because I believe that we can see some pretty dangerous things coming in the future with that. And whatever happens, don't stress about it. Just take your time and start preparing. All right, guys, take care. Peace.